Good morning. No, good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Yeah, I'm Amy. I'm a mum to 4 very energetic boys. I'm a stay-at-home mum and a part-time content creator.
4 boys. How the hell do you do it?
Always knew that I wanted to be a mum. My parents decided to start fostering children when I was 2 years old. It wasn't the calmest of environment. I've kind of replicated the chaos, but in another way.
How did you find postpartum?
I struggled with postpartum depression and anxiety, intrusive thoughts. Then led me into getting my diagnosis of ADHD.
For you to have reached out and actually got help is a really brave thing to do.
I struggled with breastfeeding all 4 of my boys. Jacob, I only managed 4 weeks. Molly, I managed literally 3 days.
But you did it.
Yeah.
You still did it.
You know, of course, it's not the children. At least I'm aware, I'm trying.
Is there anything that you do when you get complete sensory overload?
What I find is helping is
stay-at-home mum, content creating, life, ADHD. How do you do it?
Say to my husband, can you please remind me that this needs to be done? He also has ADHD, so that's half time pointless.
He'll be like, can you remind me to do this? I'll be like, I can't even remember what I've got to do. So the podcast today, I can't do anything until I've done it.
I'm just putting out there, that's classic ADHD. I am not a psychologist, I cannot diagnose. No, I'm not just lazy, I'm not just useless. I've got that creativity element to the content creation. I've just found a group of women that get it,
You do lose yourself in motherhood to then feel settled in that new identity, even down to just what you wear changes.
Yeah. Parenting is blooming hard and there's a lot of challenges.
You go, okay, well, who the come on.
What I am learning through motherhood is leading me onto something I know will be even more amazing.
You previously were a child therapist. Do you think that's really helped with your parenting?
I'll definitely be hired again after having all these kids. For some mothers, it can take months to really establish that, and that's okay.
Good morning. Oh no, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, yeah. Who knows anymore?
Know, God. So tell everyone who you are and what you do.
So I'm Amy. I'm a mum to 4 very energetic boys, and I'm a stay-at-home mum and a part-time content creator. Yeah, that's sort of me in a nutshell, really.
I suppose the best place to start is 4 boys. Wow.
Yeah.
How the hell do you do it?
I really don't know. You just do, don't you? You just find a way to get through the day one day at a time. I'd say it's very, very intense. It is manic, it's chaotic, but it is fun at the same time. Kind of a mixture of everything.
Did you always know you wanted 4 boys then? Well,
no,
not boys,
I didn't.
but 4 children.
Yeah, so no, I didn't. Always knew that I wanted to be a mum. That was like guaranteed from very young. I knew I always wanted to be a mother. That was like really important for me. I never thought I would have just one child, simply because I grew up in quite a busy environment myself with my upbringing. I had a lot of children around me. So I'm one of 4 girls, which is crazy because I've had 4 boys and I'm one of 4 girls. But I'm one of 4 girls, but I never lived with my siblings. They were a lot older. There was a massive age gap. So my parents decided to start fostering children when I was only 2 years old.
Wow.
So from the age of 2, we would usually have like around 3 other children in the house. So there was usually 4 of us. Obviously, those children came with a lot of needs, a lot of trauma. And so it wasn't the most, I guess, it wasn't the calmest of environments. It was very manic, chaotic. Yeah, it was a bit of a crazy upbringing, but in a good way as well. Like I really benefited from that and it taught me a lot. I think I've kind of replicated the chaos, but in another way. Maybe not consciously, possibly subconsciously, but I've somehow managed to replicate that. It wasn't in the plans that I had, but here we are. Yeah.
Here we are. And how did you find postpartum with that? Has it got easier in each child you've had? Or do you think just in general it's tougher when you have more children? Because the first one, you've kind of got that time to relax and just soak it all in. And then after that, no, you've just got to get up and get on with it.
Absolutely. I think first time round, pregnancy was wonderful actually, the first time round. I know we're talking about postpartum, but if we start from the beginning, pregnancy was actually like really good. And I was very, very lucky that I didn't have like severe sickness or anything. And I think because it was just me, I could really enjoy all those little steps and, baby kicking and all these things. I was really tuned into my pregnancy and I loved that. And then when I had my firstborn, who's called Jacob, and he's 8 years old now, it was a real shock to the system. And I'm sure lots of mums that are listening can relate to this, but just going from only thinking about yourself, to having to think about this little human that you've got to keep alive, you've got to plan for, and you don't really know what you're doing. Even if you thought you knew what you're doing, you don't really know what you're doing, because every baby's so different, and it's a completely different reality when you're in it as to when you think, oh, when I have a baby, when I give birth, I'm going to do this. It's so different when it actually happens. So I struggled quite a lot with postpartum depression with Jacob, and I think it was that sort of shock of how quickly my life just changed.
Yeah.
I didn't have much support. I was very much on my own with it. My husband was working a lot, family weren't nearby. So yeah, I found it quite hard. However, like you said, I didn't have any other children. So I was able to, when he would go for a nap, if I was really exhausted, I could lie down with him and go for a sleep. Now, let's be honest, most of us use that time to, unload the dishwasher, have a shower, all the things that we just don't have time to do when you've got a little one. But there was that option. Whereas now, and for the last 3, I didn't have that option, because you've got toddler, or you've got 2 more, or 3 more in my case to think about. So postpartums have been really quite tricky. And I think because I don't have like a massive support network, it's kind of been me on my own a lot of the time. Not all of the time, but we can talk about that in a little while. I found it very, very hard, and I struggled with postpartum depression and anxiety, intrusive thoughts, all of those things. And actually that sort of led me into seeking help, professional help, which then led me into getting my diagnosis of ADHD, which we can talk about.
Oh, okay.
Further. Yeah.
So you found out from struggling with postpartum?
Yeah, I did. Yeah.
Wow. And do you think before then that you thought, oh, maybe, or would that not even cross your mind?
So I always knew, like growing up, that I was a little bit, I mean, everyone's different in different ways, but I always knew I was a little bit different in terms of, I was a daydreamer. I was always the one in class that, they would say I was chatting too much, or I was away with the fairies, or had a lot of issues with like clothes, and hate wearing knickers, hate wearing tights, I hate wearing anything that was just, for me, that just felt too tight or too close to my skin. I remember when I was younger, my mum used to call me Princess in the Pea, because if like my bed had any like tiny little crumb or anything on it, I couldn't sleep in it. All these things that now when I look back, I'm like, oh yeah, the sensory stuff was clearly there from the beginning.
Yeah.
So I didn't know I had ADHD, but I was diagnosed in college with dyslexia. So I knew once I got my dyslexic diagnosis that obviously things worked a little bit differently. My brain processed things slightly different. And then I just thought that the rest of it was just anxiety. I put everything down to anxiety. And that's what happened. I ended up getting a diagnosis of GAD, generalized anxiety disorder. But really, underlying, that was all coming from the ADHD.
And I think especially postpartum it's defining for yourself, because no one talks about it until you've had a baby.
Yeah.
Oh, it's just motherhood.
Yeah.
Or is this something more? And I think, I know that looking back, I 100% had postpartum anxiety, without a doubt. And I'd struggled with anxiety before then anyway.
Yeah.
But at the time you think, oh, well, it's just motherhood and I've just got to get on with it. So for you to have reached out and actually got help is a really brave thing to do.
Yeah.
I think as mums, we put a lot of guilt on ourselves. It's got to be all about the baby. And to actually go, no, hang on, something's not right. I need to look after myself here. That's quite a brave thing to do.
I think so. For me, it kind of got to the point where I didn't have a choice. So I'm one of those people where I'm like, I can deal with it. I don't need the support. Well, this is what I used to be like. I don't need the support. I can manage it myself. I'll get on with it. I'll cope. And it got to the point where I'd done that for so many years that my body then started to say, no, actually, you do need help. You do need support. So the panic attacks were happening daily. The intrusive thoughts got so severe that I couldn't drive. I was going into meetings in my previous job and my whole body was like shaking. So physiologically, my body was saying, you need to do something about this. No matter how much I tried to sort of repress it and be like, no, like, yes, I'm anxious, but, it is what it is. I've got a lot on. I'm a mother. Just need to get on with it.
Yeah.
Until it got to the point where I ended up in A&E with chest pains and, all these things that I thought I was having a heart attack, but obviously it was just a severe panic attack. And then from going to A&E and then being referred on and then seeing a psychiatrist and starting counselling and therapy, then we sort of started to realise actually there's a lot more neurodiversity that's going on here that's leading to the anxiety.
Yeah. And do you think that through each child you've gone, actually, I know how to manage postpartum a little bit better? It doesn't make it easier, but I go, oh no, actually, I know what I can put in place now to deal with postpartum.
Yeah, I would say that I've definitely got more of an awareness. So like knowing that this isn't just baby blues, and actually this is probably a little bit more than that, or that, you know, for example, with like breastfeeding, just really trying to accept as much help and support as possible, because I struggled with breastfeeding all 4 of my boys, and I tried with all of them. Like Jacob, I only managed 4 weeks. Marley, I managed literally 3 days. The next one, which was Elias, I managed like 4 or 5 months. And with Cora, I managed, I think it was 3 months. So I tried with all of them, but I was so after Jacob. And once I got my diagnosis, by the time I got to Elias, I was like, do you know what? I'm just going to accept all the help I can, because, you know, there's no shame in asking for help. And at that point, I was like, give me all the help. Give it me now, like, because I need it. And I've needed it for so long. And I've finally gone, do you know what? You know, I can't do this on my own. And I need someone to sort of reassure me that, you know, I'm not going mad, and that there is these other things going on, and that there's things that you can do to help with that.
But also the way you say, I only did 3 days, I only did 4 weeks, but you did it.
Yeah.
You still did it.
I still tried.
But isn't it such a mum thing to go,
yeah,
well, I didn't do like everybody else did, or I didn't do a year.
Yeah.
But you still did. I didn't at all, but that wasn't a choice. That was just because I thought that I was told, because I've got cystic fibrosis, that if I got ill, I wouldn't be able to breastfeed because I'd have to take antibiotics. Of course, I didn't get ill at all. I didn't even try. And so I feel guilty because I'm like, well, I didn't even try it. And I didn't even go, no, I'm not going to listen. So if I was ever have another one, I would 100% try. But I think definitely knowing that you've got your diagnosis, for you to be able to go, oh God, now I need help. And actually that's gonna, I mean, I think that's really beneficial. And someone says here that they've just been diagnosed and they're worried that they're going to affect their kids with the diagnosis. And do you think that changes or impacts on how you have your personal parenting style? Or does it just kind of you don't really think about that too much and it's just parenting?
I think that it has affected my parenting in various ways. I'd say first and foremost, I've become so much more aware of my sensory needs. And obviously children come with a lot of noise. They're very messy. They lack, you know, a lot of touch, a lot of unpredictability, all these things I struggle with. That's children. That's what children are like.
Yeah.
And so what I've come to realise is that all these sensory needs that I have, the children were, well, I say the children, but one child in particular, we'll come back to him in a minute, but was triggering me so much. And initially I was shouting. I was obviously going upstairs and, you know, locking myself in the bedroom. I was obviously having these panic attacks. And now I come to realise, you know, of course it's not the children. It was all along, it was the fact that I didn't understand my own needs and what I needed in order to function and manage within the home environment. So it has impacted my parenting. And when I look back, I feel so guilty about times and how I've managed situations in the past that I've just gone, you know, it's them. It was never them. It was always, you know, and it's not that it was me either. It was just the situation and the needs that I have and the fact that I wasn't meeting my needs and managing, you know, the things that I need to be different in order to cope in those sorts of environments, parenting and motherhood and managing meltdowns and sibling fights and stuff like that. So yes, it has definitely impacted my parenting. And now that I'm more aware, I approach things differently. I put things in place so that I can be a more patient and calm parent. Doesn't always, you know, doesn't always work, I'm not gonna lie. But I try. At least I'm aware, I'm trying, you know what I mean? You can only do your best.
Yeah, absolutely.
So,
and how do you deal with those sensory overloads? Because I've now, if I'm like really like it's too much and it's like it's either too much noise, too much touch, whatever it is, I just go to my partner, okay, I need like 5 seconds here. Or he can just, most of the time he can sense it. But for me, what we do is he'll take Max and he'll go, right, take two. Because it's not that Max isn't doing anything wrong. It's just sometimes it's so triggering. Is there anything that you do when you get complete sensory overload that helps you?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm still learning, and even now I'm finding things that work for me and that I wish I'd known however many years ago, but I'm still on that journey of learning my sensory system and what works for me. But currently what I find is helping is, well, noise cancelling headphones, first of all. I also use, like, I don't know if you've seen them. I'm sure there's other brands out there, just putting it out there, but loops, the little loops that you can wear. So they're like these, I don't know if I've got them on me. I have to, I think downstairs. I'd have to, put them in my ears, and then they have the ones that I've got. You can change how much they sort of filter out the sound, but they don't cancel it out completely, because obviously you still want to be aware and attuned to what's going on for your children and safety and all that. But they just take that edge off of the noise, that's because for some people that struggle with noise, it can feel painful, they kind of take that edge off of the noise. So I use my loops, or I use my noise cancelling headphones quite a lot. And usually I'll use those in situations like if we're in the car. My children love to fight in the car. They love to create drama in the car. So the minute we're in the car, and if I'm a passenger or my husband's driving, they are on, and I'm zoned out. I'm like, and I have to, otherwise I can just feel that. In fact, sometimes rage building, I don't know if you get it as well. It creates rage.
But no one wants to talk about it, because I think as mums we go, oh, well, if I mention that, someone's going to think I'm a bad mum or it's wrong.
Yeah.
But I think definitely no one talks about when I was pregnant. Everyone goes, oh, wait till they do this in a negative way. Wait till they do.
Yeah.
No one goes, wait till you feel so overstimulated. And you go, well, what the hell am I meant to do with this?
Yeah, exactly.
And I was speaking to a brilliant counsellor about it. She was like, just scream into your pillow.
Yeah.
Because sometimes where else are you going to put that?
Yeah.
And it is so true. I mean, I don't know about you, but how do you deal with, in terms of motherhood and whether ADHD has an impact on it, with the emotional up and downs of dealing with your children?
Yeah, again, I'm still learning, but I find I have to have certain things in place in my daily routines. It's quite a big thing for me, because one thing I've noticed is that if I forget to take my vitamins, if I maybe stay up for an extra few hours later in the night, and then the next day I'm feeling it and I'm not well rested, or maybe if I'm not using my headphones when I need them, or I'm not taking myself to this room that I'm in now is my office space, but it's also my wellness room. And I created this literally because of my anxiety. I created it. I needed somewhere within my home that I could come to where I can get, like, you were saying that you'll tap out and your partner will tap in. Well, this is for me. I'll come in here while my husband's sort of taking over with the kids or whatnot. And this is where I bring myself down and regulate my nervous system, because if I don't have these things in place, or I just think after a while, miss my bit and it doesn't matter, or I'll stay up and watch another 2 episodes of this on Netflix, or I don't really need to use my headphones. Before I know it, I can see myself spiraling back into the rage, back into the anxiety, and I have to stick to these little things throughout my day, kind of my self-care really. I have to make time for my mental health. There's no way around it.
Someone says here, are you using medication or therapy to manage your ADHD, and has that in turn helped with, the overstimulation or the, with parenting?
Yeah. So when I was under the psychiatrist, I was initially offered a supplement. The name of it's Virin, I think. So that was it was more of a supplement that's given to, people with ADHD. And I tried that. It didn't agree with me in terms of my digestive system, so I stopped. I haven't tried any other medications. However, another thing we've not spoken about, so my partner's also got ADHD. He has ADD, so he hasn't got the hyperactivity. His is the inattentive type. And my son, my second born, also has a diagnosis of ADHD. Out of all the children, so far he has a diagnosis, but the other children have traits of an attention deficit. Not all of them, but 2 more of them do. So yeah, it's not something that I've tried, but having seen the effects that it's had on my husband, because he takes it, for work, and that is, he said he just wishes he had it when he was in school, because it's really, really helped him focus. Now, I know it's not for everyone. There's lots of other ways that you can manage your ADHD, and I'm finding ways to manage without it. But I have seen how it can positively impact some people, especially when you've got time frames to work towards, when you've got paperwork to do, and all those mundane tasks that, haven't got any dopamine involved, and you can't get your dopamine hit from, but you need to get on and do it, you know? So I don't take medication, but I have seen how much it can help people.
Yeah. And you mentioned you think your kids have traits. How early on did you notice those signs?
So for Marley, he was the first child that I noticed it with. And for Marley, it was more the sensory seeking. He was sensory seeking from very young. Now, obviously, children do that anyway as a way to explore, as a way to find out where their body fits within the space. But for Marley, it was just to another extreme. It was quite dangerous, you know, doing things that most children would probably cry about, you know. If they hit their head that hard, they would cry. Marley never cried. When we took him to get his vaccines, his inoculations, he didn't cry, which is very unusual. And straight away I thought, there's something going on here with his pain receptors. There's something going on here. He is understimulated, which is why he is seeking out so much sensory input.
Yeah.
And he's a sensory seeker, a massive sensory seeker. And that started from very young. I'd say I noticed first probably around 16 to 18 months, I noticed.
So early.
Yeah, really early on. And then it just sort of continued. Once he was in his first sort of childcare setting, so he was 2 years old, they noticed straight away that he was sort of seeking a lot of sensory input. He was always climbing up things, jumping off things, you know. Of course, at that age, children can't sit down and keep still for very long, but his was just that little bit more extreme. So yeah, quite early on, actually.
And do you think you find it easier? I'll say easier, not easy, because parenting isn't easy.
No.
To help him because you're almost kind of relating to it as well at the same time?
Definitely. Now that I know, now that I have a diagnosis myself, absolutely. Before I had a diagnosis, he used to be like my main trigger. He was, out of all children, he was the child that would trigger me the most, because all the things that I struggle with, he was like, you know, I'm going to jump all over you as much as I can. I'm going to do all these things to get as much feedback, you know, whether it's negative or not, I don't care. I just need the dopamine. I'm just going to keep going. I need the thrill. I'm going to push every boundary, and I'm going to really try with you to get that constant like attention. So yeah, it was tricky with Marley. It was really, really tricky. But now that I know that I have ADHD, and I try and put myself in his shoes, and I go, I know that he's bored, and in boredom is his thing. Like, if he's bored, that's when the behaviour starts. And although children need to learn to be bored, children with ADHD really struggle if they haven't got that sensory input, that feedback, that dopamine hit. They really, really struggle. And I know that because I'm one of those people. I can't be bored. I really struggle to be bored, you know? So now I'm definitely have a lot more compassion and understanding. And when he is having his meltdowns or his moments, I know that what he needs is for me to just get hold of him and give him a really deep, long hug and it brings him down like really well, actually. And it's not that I wouldn't have given him a cuddle before, but now I understand that this isn't just an emotional need, there's also a sensory element to it.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And that must be a lot to juggle, being a stay-at-home mom, content creating, life, ADHD. It must be, I mean, how do you juggle it?
I think my ADHD helps, to be honest. I think that's the only reason how I do it, because I've got all this energy that I've got to use. But yeah, it's hard. I'm not gonna lie. I'm not gonna sit here and say that, you know, I do it with ease, because I don't. It is very challenging. And I do find that I have to really prioritize my time and really chunk my time, like put my time into chunks, and know that this chunk of time I have to get on with my content. This chunk of time, you know, do this with Jacob or Marley, or, you know, make sure I've had some one-to-one time with them. And then this chunk of time I'm going to focus on the washing. I really have to be organised, which again is very hard, because obviously with ADHD and the difficulties with the executive functioning and planning and organising tasks, that's a real challenge. Yeah. Over the years, I've had to learn ways around it and find systems, and you know, write myself lists or put notifications on my phone, or, you know, say to my husband, can you please remind me that this needs to be done? Which he also has ADHD, so that's half the time pointless. He doesn't remind me either. We're both just walking around like these Sims, like, oh, what do we do?
Yeah, because we think my partner has it. He hasn't been officially diagnosed, but one of his counsel was like, yeah, I'm pretty 100% sure. And so he'll be like, can you remind me to do this? I'll be like, I can't even remember what I've got to do. So write that down. Literally, the list is the best thing for me anyway. But you think kind of creating a specific routine for yourself, especially being a stay-at-home mum, so you can fit in the kids, what really helps you.
I have to really be strict with my routines and also planning ahead of time. So I know that in the mornings, I really struggle to process information. So although I would say I'm a morning person, but that first hour and a half, especially as 3 out of 4 of my children wake up in the night. So, I'm very tired, So I know that the night before I have to get all the uniforms out, folded, made into piles, all the bags done, all the drinks bottles ready to go, the packed lunches, have to just be really on it. And if I don't do it, the next morning, I notice that I'm irritable, I'm shouting, I'm stressed because it's not done. I'm just not the parent that I want to be.
Yes.
So I have to plan ahead. If I don't, then, this doesn't go.
And I also find that if I've got, this is so random, but if I've got like today, the podcast today, if I've got stuff to do, I have to plan it out in the morning. Otherwise I can't do anything until I've done it. Like if I've got a doctor's appointment, I feel like I can't do anything until that appointment's done. And it's so annoying.
Do you know,
because you just procrastinate.
That's classic ADHD as well. I'm just putting out there, but that's classic ADHD. I am not a psychologist, I cannot diagnose. No, but that's classic ADHD. Like, it's really common that if you have an event or something on, even if it was at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, you kind of just get stuck in this sort of paralysis where you feel like you can't do anything else until that is out of the way. And I'm exactly the same. And I find that the morning is my most productive, my best time. And then once everything's done, I can relax now.
Yeah.
I mean, some people, might have an appointment at 3 or 4 and then they're doing X, Y, and Z all the way up till 3 o'clock. I'm like, how do you do that? Like,
I don't.
No. And I always just think that was anxiety, but
but also if I have like so much to do and I'm like, I don't know where to start, so I'm just not going to do any of it.
Yeah, exactly. It's that
frustrating.
analysis, the analysis paralysis, they call it, don't they? It's that I can't organize all these thoughts. I don't know where to start. It seems like a huge task that it's overwhelming. So then you shut down and you freeze. And that's also really common with ADHD. There's a lot of things that I sort of learned along the way. And what's helped me is I'm not just lazy. I'm not just useless. I used to call myself useless. I'm not just useless or rubbish at everything. Actually, there's reasons why, and this is all down to the way my brain works. And now I understand my brain. I can put things in place so that I can make the most out of my ADHD brain and utilize the good parts and manage the more challenging parts.
Yeah.
Because the good thing is if I'm interested in something, I hyper focus and I will give it 120%. I will literally go in and I will do it as, I will smash it. I'll master it. I'll be bored after a few weeks and then I'll start something else. But let's not talk about that. But that's a pro to having ADHD. If you find the thing that you enjoy and that gives you enough of that dopamine, and you can fly with it. But then it's the other things that tend to hold people back and make it really challenging. And for some people, it can really, really impact their life in a negative way. So because everyone's like, oh, it's a superpower, and I get why people say that, but it's not always.
No, there's ups and downs to everything.
Absolutely,
yeah. I mean, I know my partner says, he's like, once you're working, if I can see you're in the zone, I'm leaving you to it.
Yeah.
Because if you try somewhere, I'm like, no.
Yeah.
Going.
Absolutely.
So, do you think that content creating for you is great because you have that focus and you enjoy it, so it doesn't feel like work?
It doesn't feel like work, and it gives me that dopamine hit because that's what a lot of the time we're always seeking. It's that dopamine, and it gives me that because one, I'm quite a creative person, and not everyone with ADHD, but a lot of people with ADHD also have quite a creative side. So for me, I've got that creativity element to the content creation, but then I also get that dopamine hit that that comes with social media when you post and then people comment and people interact. You're like, oh, it's that feedback,
yeah,
which is great, and working with brands and all these things. So I have found something that I love and that works with the way that I work. It's not the only thing that I want to do. I've got other plans for my life. Like, there's lots of things I'm passionate about, but I do think that is why I've kind of stuck with that. And and I've also developed like a community online that has really helped me through motherhood. So I post a lot about sort of the struggles that come with motherhood, the ups and the downs. And that's really helped me because I've come across so many other women that will inbox me and they'll be like, oh my gosh, I thought it was just me, or, you know, I experienced this and I tried this, and I've just found a group of women that get it, you know, because I know there's a lot of negative talk around social media, but I've not experienced that so much. Of course, it's like trolls, you know, but other than that, I've actually just found a lot of women that I've connected with.
And I think, to be honest, with motherhood, it's you damned if you do, you damned if you don't.
Yeah.
I know I see so many kind of, what do you call them, mum influencers. I don't want to say that because you're mums, but and they'll be so positive about parenting, and the comments will be, oh, don't be realistic, it's not like this every day. And then someone will be really negative, and they'll be like, oh, you're being so negative. And I'm like, you can't win. Honestly, it's also down to the child, down to the mum, and everyone has their own experience. But you're totally right that I know the amount of times I was like, oh, it's just me, so I'm not going to say anything. And then when you do, and you realise that it's every mum thinks the same, even the most crazy things, and mums are going, oh no, I felt that, and you go, oh. And you kind of relax, don't you?
Yeah,
you go, oh, thank
100%.
God.
Yeah. I saw something the other day, and it was, I forgot the lady's name now, I probably should shout her out, but was about how she absolutely loves her children, but she doesn't always love being a mum. Like, you know, I think that she phrased it as, but sometimes she hates being a mum. And I saw it and I thought, oh my gosh, the weight that lifted off my shoulders, like, I'm not the only one. I'm not the only one who sometimes does not like being a mum, but loves my children. And a lot of people are scared to say that because they think that people will turn around and, you know, be like, well, you chose to have children. Like, why have children then? How will that make your children feel? I think it's okay to admit that we don't always love motherhood. We don't always love parenting. Parenting is blooming hard. And there's a lot of challenges. And I think if people were more honest about that, it would just make everyone feel a little bit less alone, which, you know, is what I'm on my space. I'm trying to, on my platform, what I'm trying to do is, you know, show other mothers that it's not always, it's not always sort of perfect.
No, and you do lose yourself in motherhood. I mean, whether you lose yourself and, you know, you think, oh God, I'm not the person I was anymore, and you see a negative side to it, or whether you lose yourself in motherhood and think, I'm meant to be a mum, you still change, you still become someone different, and to then feel settled in that new identity, even down to just what you wear changes. You know, I haven't even got a style now because I'm like, and I'm almost 2 years down the line, and just to feel comfortable going, okay, well, for that first however many months or years, you know, you were just mum, and that's fine. And then when they start to become a bit more independent and you don't need to be at their beck and call 24/7, and you go, okay, well, who the fuck am I? You know? And I think I think a lot of mums don't want to say, okay, well, I'm mum still, but now I have the time to be me. Who is that?
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's no one can answer that question. No one talks about it because it's, I think, having people like you have a platform to say it, and it be so public. It's just so good for mums to be able to go,
absolutely.
Oh, okay, great. There's a community here, and we all feel the same. And, you know,
absolutely. And it's that, you know, the phrase matrescence. It's that transformation, and who you are and what comes out the other side. Who knows? But it is a rediscovery, and you are going to be someone different, whether you like it or not. There is always a change that happens there. For some people, it's bigger than others. I mean, before I was a mum, I had really quite a fun life. Like, I had quite a buzzing social life. I was traveling around. I was singing. I was dancing. I was in a girl band. I was dancing professionally all over. I was modelling around the country. Like, I was having this like really quite. It was all about me, you know. It was this amazing life, but it was all based on me. And then I became pregnant and had a child, and it was just like, vroom, I am literally stuck between these four walls with this crying baby that I've just got to feed and change and feed and change and sleep and feed and change. And I just felt like it was Groundhog Day, and like everything else just stopped. And I was like, oh my goodness, like, am I ever going to get my life back? Is my life over? You know, all these questions were just going round in my head. And now I've come to realise 8 years later, my life wasn't over, but it's just another chapter.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's just another chapter. I have actually grieved a lot. I feel like I've grieved a lot for like my old life, my life before children. And I've come to sort of a point of acceptance now where I'm like, what I am learning through motherhood is leading me onto something like I know will be even more amazing, that will be even more fulfilling. And this whole journey with my children is teaching me so much. So I've accepted now. I'm never going to go back to that stage. But will I have a life again? Yeah, I will. I will make sure I still have a good buzzing social life and all the rest of it. But at the moment, this is the chapter I'm in, and I'm just
yeah. And of course, you previously were a child therapist.
Yeah,
is that
yeah,
right?
I was,
Do you think that's really helped with your parenting, or do you think it's like, no, that's completely fucking separate?
literally. Oh, no, I'll definitely be hired again after having all these kids. No, I'm joking. No, so yeah, I do feel like I think what it helped me with is, so my specialism was attachment and trauma. I was a theraplay therapist, which is, it's all based around those sort of early foundations and the bonds between a mother and child. And I'd work with families who maybe that hadn't happened for whatever reason. Maybe the baby was in ICU and the mum didn't get that initial attachment, or maybe they were in foster care or they were adopted and they were trying to reestablish and rebuild those building blocks that, they were broken or there was bits missing. So I would facilitate that over however many weeks and try and establish sort of a secure attachment between parents or carers and children. I did that for many, many years. And because of my experience growing up in a family foster home, it was like a natural progression to end up working within the field of psychology and attachment and children. It just sort of happened,
Yeah.
And I do think that when I then went on to have children myself, it definitely helped me recognize certain things within the children when it came to the neurodiversity side of things, because I also was dealing with autism and ADHD and whatnot. So it definitely helped with recognizing the ADHD and the neurodiversity within my children. However, when it came to like the attachment, although I knew all of the psychoeducational stuff and, I knew it all, but when it's your own child, it's so different.
Yeah.
And I didn't straight away with my first, I didn't feel that, oh my God, I'm madly in love with you. That's like I don't want anyone to touch. I didn't feel that. It took me a while to get that attachment with Jacob. And I don't know why. I can't put my finger on it, because I know from studying attachment, I know exactly, what's healthy and what's, what I would have hoped for it to be. But I didn't have that. And yeah, so it's definitely helped me in certain ways, but I would also say that when it's your own children, it doesn't matter whether you've got, a PhD in, neuroscience or
Yeah.
it doesn't matter. When it's your own child, it's always different. Once there's emotions involved, it's different.
Yeah. And I think it's really interesting how you say, I didn't have that instant kind of attachment. And I think a lot of mums, I think we see all these things on like films and we're like, oh my God, it's idyllic and we're crying and everything's beautiful. And that might be some for mums, great.
Yeah.
And it was for me when he was first put on my chest.
Yeah.
But then the day after, I don't know if it was because it was quite a traumatic birth and it was all kind of rushed at the end, but I was just looking at him the next day and I was like, I wasn't feeling anything. I wasn't feeling like hate or overwhelming love. It was nothing. And you just felt, you were like, what the hell is wrong with me?
Yeah.
And I think a lot of mums have felt that and they've gone, oh yeah, well, I obviously loved my child, but I didn't feel like this overwhelming attachment. And it only lasted for me like for about a day. But it was really scary. And I was like, why has no one told me that this may be something you feel? Because all you're told is you're going to absolutely love them. You don't always feel that way.
Absolutely. And I was reading the other day, but for some mothers, it can take months to really establish that. And that's okay.
Yeah.
That's okay. Obviously, if you're struggling with postnatal depression, then you want to seek help, and that could be a big part of it as well.
Yeah.
I think that a lot of people think you have a baby and then straight away it's like, oh my gosh, all this, unconditional love and, oh, this is the best thing in the world. And I'm trying to think with all my births, for every single child, it took me a few weeks to start to get all those feelings again. It wasn't for me, it wasn't instant with any of them. I was more in shock. I felt like I was more in a state of shock and adrenaline. In the first few weeks, I was very much just like sort of on autopilot. And then when I could really relax into it and get to know my baby, and I started to really get that attachment with them. But yeah, like you say, I don't think many people talk about that.
No. Well, thank you so much for being so honest and open today. It's so refreshing because I think it's so nice to talk to mums and just kind of be like, oh yeah, and just kind of really connect and be like, we're all in this together and we all feel the same things and there's no right or wrong, and
absolutely,
be so honest about your ADHD and your family life. It's been so lovely to talk to you, and I think it will really help a lot of mums, whether they're either struggling with motherhood or they are worried that they may have ADHD or whether it's going to affect their parenting, and just showing, you know, I just think you're so incredibly brave, and thank you so much for coming on the podcast today.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been lovely time.